y'all. I think we're about ready to kick off tonight's event. So if y'all could just take your seats.
Who's being?
I want to give a warm welcome to everyone here and thank you all for coming out to Malvern Books for tonight's reading. I would like to introduce our first reader tonight. Ashley Smith Keyfitz, or Ash Smith, is the author of Watershed, Come Such Frequency, Pigeon of Tears, and the forthcoming Park of Unwired Asking. Formerly a publisher for the LRL magazine and book series, she lives in Austin where she does web design, graphic design, and community outreach work. Please welcome our first reader, Ashley.
Thank you. This is pretty exciting. Thanks to everyone for coming out tonight and to Malvern and to Maureen and Barbara for inviting me to read here. Oh, and I have a microphone, which is very unusual, so now I feel like a rock star. One of the wonderful things about Malvern Books is it's like the place to read in Austin, so I've read here a couple of times. I've been lucky enough to get to read here a couple of times before, but I feel like I have to read something new every time. But this first thing I probably did read here before because it's Katie's favorite poem. And I feel like it kind of has a little bit of a nod to a poem by Maureen that is called Goodbye of the 21st Century, or Audio's Busy Signal, which has this refrain in it where it's talking about the answering machines of the answering systems of the future, like what we would leave on, like those, like when there isn't a busy signal anymore. Anyway, so this one refers to a different technology, but I think actually Maureen's poem is better than mine, and I should probably just read it, but y'all are not so lucky tonight. After the trouble of cutting the pumpkin open to roast it, fuck the recipe. Everything burns. We were being sarcastic. We were taking a page from pre-literacy. We were letting our silken fingers repeat a brook. We were stream beds. We were adding white space between speaking, like lotus flowers. You could erase these pauses in the digital amplifier, but you couldn't call it a rerun anymore. We found a God to dissolve these seeds back into pumpkins. We found a God to dissolve these pumpkins back into fish, but you could never call it a rerun again. Traveling these green threads, each instantiation is unique as a fingerprint and contains its own unspeakable dimension. That's why you can cut the eyes out and put the candle inside. That's why it's so hard to peel the skin off. How someone consulted the skies and the dots connected between stars spelled, nope, reverse spring. You said the peacock was just a rave turkey, cousin to the glam gourd you could drink from. There sleeps an indigo deer, there in its crushed bed of slumber clover, with you whispering incendiary words next to hay. There by the lost recipe for a crystal heart. Let us admit the apocalyptic eclipse clips its secrets into a closed box. When the door slides shut, you untwist the lid from the flashlight and all the stars fall out. Or all the words the child has read beneath the blanket, cutting the eye holes out. The way the green shoot initialized from silt spells its way out of mud. So this next one I found in my notes when I was looking over things to read, and it seemed appropriate, which I guess you'll see why. A transparent wall, a sieve wall, a glass wall, wall of tears, a perforated wall, wall of eyelash salt, a laser cut wall, a wall that is actually a giant roll, jelly wall, sexy see-through peak wall, beer pong wall, wall of shoes piled together, wall covered in lubricant, a lace wall, wall made out of the dead remains of a Great Barrier Reef, wall of hatched bird eggs, wall of fireflies, wall made of a movie projected of all the moments in your life your eyes were briefly closed, wall of hands touched in hospitals, wall of the animals lost by children in the desert crossing, wall that connects ourselves, wall that rolls each syllable into another language, wall that translates a lake, wall of the crayons kept from children, wall of milk, wall of notes sent back, wall to hear more deeply at, wall as an ice sculpture carried in on trucks, wall of the lights from cat's eyes in the night, wall to stand against to be hit by drugs, wall of levitation, wall of arms letting in, wall in the mind, wall of lies, wall of things to grab from and need, wall of guns filled with tampons instead of bullets to smuggle in tampons, wall of windows no one could close, wall which dissolves itself like song. Okay, this next poem, I feel a little weird about because I feel like it's a little too cheerful. Like, I think I was mentioning that earlier. But it's kind of like newer, but it's also autobiographical. I feel a little weird about reading it, but I'm going to read it anyways. Consciousness is an ancient virus, multiple of a half-bacterium, outlined. How sorrow makes a new space where nothing was. But I don't want this to be about it yet. When there's pure watermelon, whole slices, and a crystal vase on the trailer park birthday table, where we filled such large mylar balloons with some of the world's last helium, and tied them on the gate that means I love you, and the entire contours of your existence. First spring, all weekend Willie Nelson radio, when this holographic light makes a pattern even an infant's less nimble eyes could recognize, streaming through these tall trees that means somehow infinity is real, even a newborn could recognize, if not externally, then born with a virus that eats us, that says you know the thing you wanted to believe, that somehow the future is large enough. Though teeth are a kind of skin, and made from the same cells, because how close to hold is tearing. And this piñata brought from the Bulldoze piñata shop, demolished with all the piñatas inside against the owner's will, only to be given resources from friends to make a new shop. As a lesson in what the interior is worth, we hang in this tree to hit. Against these things we're filled inside with lunar body, chemical fire, soaked t-shirts, mountain of glass. I know it isn't true, but how perfect the light is through these trees, as if coming from a drive in the future where infinity is dispersed so slowly, no loss was meaningless, that we felt we weren't using space and time, but widening it. Okay, I have to have a drink from this drink I got from Juice Land that's called Ninja Bachelor Party, which is sort of like a poem. Okay. Because asking was my first prison, I wouldn't say, but silence is another cell, to be known and impossessible. We found in the Dickinson poem how she could say this thing so hard outright, shell that cracks pass through to refuse, to bury eroticism in the painting of flowers, how the cat rests his head in your mouth. Like you fell into a garden of all the deleted selfies to contour the year back to you and the angel of what is most intimate by hiding it. Is that an escape path, going deeper into the edge, furry with cicada pulse, big bright stars goes through me. Tinted ice cream truck, you said, it switches to a different song when selling street drugs. Oil-rich milk. Issues the deeper music, issues a stroking sensation, what touch enters before language, standing in the backyard, these gold tomatoes are for microdosing, son. And the boy said, when is Namaste? Could we enter it? Could we walk through it like the sunflower's face we stroke amidst cradle lines the calendar wraps around a moment? Does freedom reach outside culture or infuse it? That time I wanted to drive into the city, into the heart of the city to taste artificial light, where you fell into the field and the flowers bloom from your drawing. Okay, so this next poem has a reference to New Orleans, which Barbara Lee just came from New Orleans, so kind of struck me as appropriate. Or I don't know if it actually just references oysters, but that's pretty fun. Mimosa perfume in the blue coat will cause a winter bee's confusion. Sad bees of January will wake a mosquito from hibernation, who hide in the window ledges without warm blood. Age of weeping ice caps and seedlings of the Anthropocene, coursing for the floral fuzz that undoes ice and ice's departure, researching how something invisible works by discerning objects of the living. Resist the solvent these words metabolize as a self-generating preservative. Look into a pill bug scale for 4 minutes to fall in love. It's a one-way thing, but come back wiser, or as the boy says, a secret, but not to themselves, like colors only the bees can see. Like a secondary layer that adds clarity through a multiplicity at the center. We drove to the bayou. We drove through the curtain the long moss curates like a time tangle, to feel the life that gives life as it is. It was the age of our ancestors' resume. It was the age insects wanted us fired. The Chafalaya looks and the microbial romance that feeds sugarcane and rice. Icy waters where the oysters sift our summer fears into clear thoughts to double the tongue or the body's interior. To swallow one's most primordial interior. To live, we eat the history of evolution. Fish brain wrapped in a reptile brain, wrapped in a snake brain. Crush and drink the rainwater. Okay, so. So I have one last comment. It's about Joshua Tree, and also references this concept a friend of mine was telling me about, that Joshua Tree was originally created by giant sloths that were, I think, about 10 feet tall and just like really huge, and like were able to spread the Joshua Tree seeds around, which is amazing. So. Theory that the giant sloths built Joshua Tree, cracked the deep seeds with their flat teeth to drag the desert vertical. Huge, slow fur over the earth. Now the slow ghosts don't go, an ache that big. That endangered space tree is a kind of yucca, but no one eats it now. You can drive forever, but you'll never arrive at the moment survival exceeds its ghost. I meant I love you. That year that the Joshua trees bloomed all at once. My son was a baby. I felt in love, but not on purpose, more how you fall in a hole. The problem is that the moths become confused and drunk in abundance of flowers. Each moth evolved to a species of Joshua tree, but different sized. Dry white bodies enter the wrong bloom and leave a trail of pearl eggs that can't hatch in that chamber. The face can only go so far. How far can time go back in, if not forward? I wanted to start a podcast about the foods people don't eat anymore, that used to carry a species, but things change. Outside this cave, people used to eat the fruit of all yuccas as a staple, that it tastes like burnt honey when roasted. How far can you carry a forest? I slip on my sloth suit and climb through the night. Thanks.